Now she wants an EU army. A number of EU countries are meeting today for a defence meeting. The 5 big ones here: UK, Germany, Poland, Italy and France are meeting for a defence meeting in Rome. And I just had to start the walk and talk here today. As you can see, I'm definitely not on the Isle of Man. I'm in front of this, what they call over here, a beautiful art installation. I think I'd call it something else personally, but each to their own. Of course, the main point of the meeting then was counteracting this Eastern aggression and sort of forming stronger alliances within the European Union and also with allies, which, funny enough, don't include the USA. In fact, the statement actually went on to say, they actually called this the eventual disengagement of Washington with the sense of urgently particularly acute. Indeed. And this comment made me laugh then. It said, we need to keep Russia as far away from all of our member countries as possible, including Ukraine. Hold on. Well, there's 2 things wrong with that statement right away. Firstly, Ukraine is not a member country of the European Union, and I doubt it ever will be. And secondly, it's going to be pretty difficult to keep Ukraine away from Russia, considering that they share a border. I mean, they're pretty much connected. I mean, some of the statements they make are absolutely bizarre. Okay, we've got a big tunnel to walk through here then. And the statements from Ursula von der Leyen were absolutely weird and crazy as usual, where she said that she's already signed, here it is, a new wave of rearmament for the Union, pounding out an 800 billion war chest over the next 4 years. And this is where it gets weird as well. It says, partially using Russian seized illegal assets. I mean, firstly, I don't think that's correct. I swear they're just adding words all the time to these statements to make it sound more, you know, authentic or dramatic in some way. Because firstly, I don't think those Russian assets were illegal or illegally gained. Look at this. You can tell we're in a European city now, can't you? There's graffiti everywhere, even where we just walked through. Graffiti even here. This is meant to be quite a beautiful walk, actually. I've been told there's a beautiful bench over here to sit on as well. But I'm pretty sure we're going to, yeah, here we go. What a surprise. There's the beautiful bench right there. Newly installed, and already it's got graffiti all over it. Someone's had a bit of a fire here as well. In fact, what they're trying to burn there, they've snapped off there, and trash all over the floor everywhere you look as well. But anyway, this is what it's like. But getting back to the point then, they keep adding words like illegal in there. But the irony of that statement is that I don't actually think the money that was seized was illegally gained. I think it was seized by allies, I guess we can call them, due to Ukraine conflict. But the irony is it was actually ruled an illegal seizure under international law anyway. So it is again kind of like flipping things on their head. But it goes on to say that the crucial elements of her Rearm Europe plan are creating new budgetary space for the 27 member states and an ad hoc fund to strengthen the EU's industrial base. So basically what that means is they're looking to strengthen all of the routes, firstly, and bridges and all sorts of other things for greater unification of the current EU militaries. And if you actually read the full program, they talk about how what they want to do with it all is to have a sort of common general, an overarching general and group, which is led by the European Union, that controls their own EU military or EU army, if you prefer. And I always remember these infamous words. Here they are, got them written down. It is imperative that the European Union eventually develops a more unified and capable military force, which many of us refer to as a European army. This we all know as one truth. What what does that even mean? This we all know as one truth. I swear they just put complex sort of language patterns into some of these statements so that people get confused and then don't even really think about it. They sort of go, I'm confused by that, I don't know what it means, but I heard the word truth and that we need an EU army, so that must be the truth. Right? It's all word weaving and language patterns that they use. It's very clever psychological techniques and tactics, actually. So let's have a talk about some of these initiatives that they're planning then. But before we do, final reminder here, this Sunday, so if you're watching this video after the fact, sorry you've already missed it, but this Sunday we are drawing the raffle, the big raffle that I know a lot of you have entered. If you haven't, it's just £1 per ticket. That's it. I mean, I couldn't make it any cheaper. That was the lowest price to enter the raffle. So if you do win, you can get to spend the day with me. You can come to the castle on the Isle of Man, just have an incredible day. It's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. And then after this raffle, maybe we'll do another one in the future. Maybe we can do more of a, I don't know if it'll be a group thing or whatever else. Maybe we'll do a meeting in the future. Who knows? But for now, this is your opportunity to enter the raffle. It's going to be awesome. And then the other point I'll make quickly, and then we'll get straight back into all the content here, is that a lot of you are still not on the email newsletter. You've got to be on that email newsletter. The other risk is if I ever get censored from YouTube or some of the other platforms, I'm not going to get censored from X, there's no way, or Rumble, things like that. But with YouTube, make sure you're on my email newsletter, because if that ever happens, you'll still be able to get all of my content, all of my news. So the link for that is below, really important. So here's the initiatives then. A couple of them you might be aware of, some of them you might not be aware of any of them actually. So one is called PESCO, P-E-S-C-O. This is the Permanent Structured Cooperation. It's a framework that was launched in 2017, so 8 years ago now. And it's where EU countries collaborate on projects, and it's sort of quite loosely termed when it says projects. It can mean pretty much anything from cybersecurity to defense to infrastructure projects, all sorts of things. There's another one called Strategic Compass. This is from 2022. This was emergency powers and all the other stuff. These were when the goals came out for the EU defences, and these goals run right through to 2030. And it's very interesting how in 2025 they have already achieved some of these goals. So I'm pretty sure they've achieved what they have already. Then the 2030 goals, why is it? It's always about 2030, Agenda 2030, right? So by 2030, they want to have their own military deployment. It says they want a rapid deployment force, which it doesn't really go into details on. I did try to read up a lot on it, but it's not clear. Like, what is this rapid deployment force? Why do they need it? How are they going to use it? No one really knows. If you've got any ideas, drop them in the comments below. And now let's walk through another dark tunnel. But I do know that the EU is heavily investing at the moment in infrastructure, because I've seen the documentations, and you can find these projects online. So they are investing very heavily in these sort of military projects and infrastructure. So they're obviously gearing up for something big, but when that will take place, I couldn't tell you, because it doesn't kind of fit in with the timeline of some of the other big events that we've been talking about for years here. We've got a woodpecker's burrow here. You see that hole in the middle there? So woodpecker's burrow. Oh look, even more art. Look at this, beautiful, hey? Someone had to paint art, an art installation. Oh, and there's more. Thank you to the artist who decided to create this art installation for us. We really appreciate it. But wait, there's more. The UK and Germany have just put out this massive press release talking about this new 2,000 kilometer missile that they've just jointly developed. And the thing that I find bizarre about it, most of the headlines say UK and Germany, developed 2,000-kilometer missile, right? But some of them say that can strike Russia. I mean, are we really looking for de-escalation here, or are we looking for even more escalation? Why even add on that to the end of the article? And does anyone want a TV here? There's just a TV that's been dumped. Gosh, I remember as a kid playing in this woodland and playing in other woodlands like this, and it was just beautiful, so beautiful. You'd never find any rubbish, you'd never find any problems. Everything was clean, everything was well kept. It was just beautiful. Now you can probably hear all the background noise. They've got some sort of industry right in the middle of the woodland. Why? I have no idea. Why do you need to put industry right in the middle of a woodland? All of the rivers here are blocked as well. I was just looking at the rivers. There's shopping trolleys and rubbish and all sorts in there. Such a shame, really is. I think this is probably the cleanest part of the river I've seen so far, apart from whatever that is, someone's thrown something in it there. But apart from that, it's beautiful here. We got some dragonflies there, sort of turquoisey colour dragonflies just flying around. Beautiful, beautiful. This part's quite beautiful here. Look at this. Oh, no, someone's ruined it. But the Netherlands has also just signed a really, really big contract. It says here that it's Saab's Carl Gustaf M4 anti-tank weapon. The first deliveries coming through to 2028. And this is because they need them for future deployments, because the maximum range of their current rockets is 600 meters. But the really big news is that they've just bought 46 Leopard tanks from KNDS for more than $1 billion for, again, future deployments. Exactly where the Netherlands is thinking they're going to be deploying to, I have absolutely no idea. But I think the big one that you've got to keep your eye on, and again, this happens throughout, it's just a cycle, is Germany. Germany has just announced, I'm going to throw the image on screen that I'm looking at here. Germany must have stronger army than Britain, says Merz. So it's currently 1.89%. They plan to move this up to 5%. That's more than double the UK at 2.28%, France at 2%, Italy 1.6%, and Luxembourg at 1%. In another meeting though in Brussels, we had the Austrian General Robert Brieger stressed the EU needs a clear approach when it comes to defence, and the chiefs had issued recommendations on Article 42.7. Now, if you're not familiar with Article 42.7, this is the EU's mutual defence clause. So what have they just said about this? They've said that it needs updating and refreshing, but in effect, if an EU country is ever attacked, it means that all other EU countries must come to the aid. So it's similar to NATO's Article 5, I guess. And the last time this was enacted, can you hear this background noise, by the way? All of this noise. This is meant to be a beautiful woodland, and this is all managed by the National Trust, and yet you've got whatever's going on over here. Why on earth you need this massive industrial site in this beautiful nature reserve in the city? I couldn't tell you. It's as if they're destroying all the nature on purpose, not maintaining anything here. But coming back to Ukraine a moment here then, this was an interesting one. Remember I said last week, there's a bit suspicious, all this stuff about the firebombing of Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister's house, and his car and all this other stuff. It was a bit strange. Well, now we know, even though they knew who it was that did it right away and they apprehended him, now we know why they kept it all out of the media. And the reason for that is they found out that he is Ukrainian. He's a 21-year-old Ukrainian national that's obviously upset with the Prime Minister that they're not sending troops and they're not doing all this other stuff, and he decided to firebomb the Prime Minister's house. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Put your comments below on what you think about that. In fact, I think it was probably one of the shortest news articles I've ever read in my life. It was one headline and a paragraph. That's pretty much all they put on there about it. And most didn't even say his nationality. See, whenever they don't put someone's nationality, or they don't put a picture or description, straight away you know there's something fishy going on, something suspicious. That's one of the telltale signs. Even though the people know straight away, the media hides that, or they don't put it in there. But when it's something else, they want to put that in there right away. Like, let's say I committed a crime. My face would be everywhere right away. Even before anything was proven, they'd like put it all over the newspapers because I fit their profile, right? But for other people, like this Ukrainian chap who's done it, no, nothing about him at all. Now just a headline and a paragraph 1 week later. Another reason Ursula von der Leyen is upset today is because she said that the Allies have let her down, let the EU down, because if they'd have all fought together against Trump's tariffs, then they could have won and defeated him. But what she's saying is that because no one got together, now the EU has got to fight Trump on their own. And Rachel Reeves has come up with her new master plan. She's just announced her new master plan for the UK economy because of the problems and the crippled economy and the debt spiral and everything else. She's come up with a master plan. Are you ready for this? This is genius. Even more taxes. That's the master plan. She's going to raise even more money from taxes. She's going to start with the wealthy. She said she's going to tax the wealthy even more because so far she's raised £5 billion. It's an effective strategy. She called it some weird name like an effective equitable strategy for all, or some equitable plan for all. It's one of those World Economic Forum kind of slogans, you know, equitable and stuff like that. So yeah, short-term solution, long-term problem. That's basically what you're now going to have. Because as I've been saying for years here, as soon as you start going after the business owners and the entrepreneurs, I'm not just talking about, I'm not talking here about some of the wealthy people that don't pay taxes in the country, etc., etc. They contribute some money to the economy, but the ones I'm really talking about are the entrepreneurs, the ones who have businesses and companies here, especially digital businesses. They're the ones that's the most dangerous, because if you tax them to death, they're just going to move their companies out of the country. They really are. So her plan is to go after these people as well and just, you know, start doing these wealth taxes and everything else. And I've said it 2 years ago and I'll say it again today. The more you tax people, the more people that have options to leave will leave. And that has played out almost perfectly. That's what we have seen. They are leaving and more will begin to leave now. Oh, and the bin strikes have started again in Birmingham, or trash if you are from America. The trash strikes have started. So we're going to see rats the size of cats all over Birmingham again at this rate, unless they sort it out. You know, I'm still getting emails and sort of hate over that video that I did when I went to Birmingham. I don't know why people were so upset that I was showing that filthy area in the city. I guess people just don't like the fact that I had exposed what was sort of going on there. Normal people that had taken their rubbish to the tip and got rid of it themselves, they had no issues at all. But for some reason, some of these other areas, they just throw it all over the street and they seem to have problems. Also in the UK, another genius solution to the prison overcrowding, and that is to release more prisoners. I mentioned this the other day, but they've gone into more detail on it, or some journalists have really uncovered some pretty sinister stuff here on the sort of people that are going to be released. It's pretty disgraceful, actually. And yes, it is the sort of people that you would not like around your children are going to be released early as well. That's what this document, this report actually says. But Ms. Mahmood had this to say: it has to be done, otherwise we'll see the total breakdown of law and order. If we run out of prison cells, the police would be forced to stop making arrests, trials would be halted, and the whole system would collapse. Wow, is it really that easy for the whole system to collapse? Can you imagine that back in like World War II era or something like that? You saw how everyone came together, everyone was unified. What has changed since then? That's the question. What has changed in that? Here's another statement she said: we cannot build out of our crisis. The prison population is increasing by 3,000 people each year. That's the equivalent of 2 new prisons. When she was asked why, why is crime spiking? Why are we having all these problems? She didn't have an answer to that question. Well, that's funny, because I'm pretty sure that many of my subscribers here who don't have master's degrees in whatever hers is in could answer that pretty simple. In fact, why don't you leave a comment below and tell us all why that is happening? Because it's pretty logical, it's pretty common sense. You're soft on crime, you get more crime. I mean, it's pretty easy, really. You have open borders and criminal gangs will come in and they'll set up shop in your country. And if the punishment is a prison sentence, which you get released from early anyway, well, who wouldn't do that if you're a criminal-minded person? Of course you're going to do it. It's easy, it's soft. You can make a fortune and then not really have to suffer the consequences for it. But the one that really had me scratching my chin and going, was that she's announced plans to build 3 new prisons. Do you know how much these prisons cost? 4.7 billion pounds. How on earth does it cost 4.7 billion pounds to build a prison? That's just under 1.6 billion pounds per prison. Like, that is so much money. Where on earth is all of that money going? It surely can't cost 1.6 billion pounds to build one single prison. There's something dodgy going on there. There's always something dodgy with all of these projects, you know. The cost of them is always way above what it should really cost. Oh, and let's just wrap up the video with one last thing here. Remember we talked about all the weather, the boiling last week, and all of the new slogans that they're using. Well, one thing I was going to say, and I should have said it on the video, was next thing they'll announce a hosepipe ban in spring, you know, and laugh about it, because that would be absurd, of course. You get them in summer where you can't use hose pipes and stuff like that. But guess what? I just read they're thinking about enacting a spring and summer hosepipe ban in the UK because of global boiling. You honestly can't make this stuff up, really. They're saying this is the worst spring on record, like since records began. This is the worst ever spring, and it's so hot, and oh, we're going to run out of water and all this other stuff. No, what's more likely is that whenever it's their fault for not maintaining infrastructure or not, you know, doing things correctly, because they're taking all these profits out of the country, or they're selling the water companies to foreign entities who don't care about the British people, what do you think happens? You get leaks in the pipes, you get cost-cutting measures, all these other things. That's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. That is what they're doing. It's nothing to do with you or other people around you using too much water or global boiling or whatever else. They just use all this stuff as a smokescreen. It's just a massive lie. And I guess with all that said then, I've had my rant today. Hope you enjoyed listening and walking with me. Wasn't the most beautiful walk, but it was a walk all the same. We're going to go back through this dark tunnel here, and I just want to say thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do that. I really appreciate it. Other than that, take care, God bless, and I'll see you on the next video. They've done a nice job of restoring this sandstone wall here, because I remember this was all crumbling, falling down. Oh yeah, and here's the entrance. Look at all that. He puts that there. A nice entranceway here. Beautiful.